Right, hello and welcome to another Dauntless development video. Today is a devlog, devlog number 2 in my VR Tower Defense devlog series. Now, I apologise, this was supposed to be out on Saturday, however, I encountered bugs that appeared out of nowhere, and therefore I was slightly delayed, and I don't work Sundays, so I've left it until today. But anyway, so this week I planned on doing quite a bit. I planned on introducing a lot of new weapons, since previously there was a bow and nothing else. And I also planned on fixing one or two bugs that were in with the bow. But however, I've not done much, as 3D modeling takes an awful long time, as I've found out, as well as trying to paint the meshes and stuff, like texture them. And I encountered bug after bug. My main goal was to get two-handed weapons where you can grab the weapon at any point, and I have that working. I do. That was the thing that broke though on Saturday, but I do have that working, so you can reach out and grab a weapon from any point along it, as if you would in real life. Now, this doesn't sound too fantastic, I know. It doesn't sound like the most impressive thing, but generally, how the system's kind of built to work in Unity is you pick something up by a fixed point, and even trying to have two fixed points where you can grab is a little bit awkward. But trying to make it so that they're not fixed points and you can actually grab from anywhere, that is it's a whole nightmare, which I eventually did solve. But yeah, it was a big headache. So I'm definitely behind this week on where I want to be. But first of all, one of the first things I did was I messed around in Blender, and I created this Blender sword. I say Blender. This sword in Blender. It's not really any particular type of sword. It's just a bit of a short sword, somewhere between a short sword and a dagger, honestly. I definitely need to make some adjustments. It was more of me just because I've not really used Blender in the past, so this was me kind of practicing and trying to get something working. So yeah, I mean, that works functionally as a sword. I'll show you some gameplay of using things later. But the next model that I made was kind of a prototype model of a two-handed axe, and it looks a bit more like some kind of signpost, some kind of sharpened signpost. It wasn't the best, but it was just a try to make it a bit quickly, just so I could get the functionality in there. So then after I made this one, I moved on. I kind of got the functionality in there first, and then I worked on my next model. My next model looks a lot nicer. I'm pretty proud of this one, honestly, considering I've basically made nothing in Blender before. I'm not artistic in the slightest, but it's a relatively decent looking axe. That's it. I mean, right now you can see it untextured, but I'll show you what I did next, which was I went into a program called Quixel Mixer. It's a program which allows you to kind of paint materials onto things, so you can make your own custom materials. So like you blend materials together by painting it on. It's similar to, I believe it's called Substance Painter or something. And there's Armor Paint, and there's some others. Armor Paint I could not get to install correctly. Substance Painter is a premium software, so I went for Quixel Mixer, basically because I don't have the money to be spending on software at the moment. I probably will end up getting Substance Painter eventually if I start making a lot of stuff, but for now I just wanted to find out if it was worth my time, if I was going to be able to do anything. So yeah, I managed to make once when I used this Quixel Mixer, I managed to paint the axe, and it looks I think it looks pretty good. It's got wooden kind of shaft and then the metal blade over the top. I'm very impressed with how it's turned out, honestly. I mean, the metal isn't perfect. It doesn't obviously necessarily look perfect. I struggled to find a material that would for the metal which looked good. So I've stuck with that. It might not look necessarily realistic, but I think it looked good, and I think that's all that matters. But yeah, so that's all I've got in terms of models anyway. So yeah, onto the actual gameplay. So as I load in, you can see my bow still works exactly as it did before. Nothing's changed about that. The capsule's set up so it'll take 1 damage and change colour, and then every 25 damage after that it'll change colour again. I've got the sword here. It looks alright. It's got some... It definitely could do with adjusting, but it's alright. As I come over to the two-handed axe, you can see that as I go to touch the axe, a little green marker shows up, and that's where that connection point is, and the same with the other one. The red ones are kind of... I'll explain that later, actually. But yeah, I can swing my axe with 2 hands. I'm holding on to it with 2 hands there. And the more I swing, the more damage I do. You can see the bigger swings I take, it was changing colour faster. Now I can switch hands, and I can do it the other way. And yeah, black means it's out of health, basically. So I can also still swing with 1 hand. I need to adjust this. I'm not sure whether I should either use some kind of physics thing to just make it really difficult to actually swing with it, or if I perhaps instead of using that method, I just increase the damage when you're using 2 hands perhaps. Or maybe just you physically can't swing the weapon without holding on to 2 hands. I might be able to just lock it in place, and if you pull your hand away you just break away and you no longer hold on to it. That might work as well. But yeah, as I said, when you could see those, I'll probably show another bit of that clip. When you see the green and red markers that are appearing on the handle, the way I managed to have you be able to grab anywhere along the handle is I took basically an area. So you've the entire kind of I don't know what to call it, but let's say the shaft of the weapon, the main, like the grip area. You've got a maximum and a minimum point that you can grip onto. So I have those two as transforms, and basically I use some form of like optimization algorithm that it's pretty simple. It basically draws a raycasts from the hand, which is interacting with the weapon, to the maximum and minimum point, and to the middle of those 2 points. And if it's closer to the top than it is the bottom, like if it's closer to the maximum than it is the minimum, then the middle becomes the minimum or the maximum, depending on which way you're going. And it repeats this process until the center, the middle point, is within a certain distance of the hand. Now, the reason I had to do this was because this is the best solution I could find in order to find out where the closest position on the actual weapon is. Now, it's quite... honestly, it's very... it performs very well. Most of the time, it only... the highest I've seen it take, the amount of times it's had to check and optimize and shrink down, was 6. And just comparing the distance of 2 vectors 6 times is nothing. Barely takes a frame to do that. So there's no need to optimize any further, really. So that I'm very happy with that solution. Obviously, those red and green markers aren't going to be there in the real game. That's just a temporary thing. And the weapons, as you see, were just floating when I let go. I don't have physics enabled on them at the moment, just because for testing purposes, every time I let go of something and it just falls away and I've got to try and run after it and grab it off the floor, it's just more difficult. So for now, I've just got everything without gravity turned on, just because it's a lot easier. Now, I didn't get thrown weapons like I wanted to, although I would theorize that the axe, if I had gravity turned on and I had everything working like that, given that it's just a collider and it just works out how fast it's moving to do damage when it collides, I would theorize that it would work, although it will pass straight through whatever it goes into. So, or will it? It might bounce off, actually. But obviously, what I want is for it to stick into it. So I haven't actually put time into working on thrown weapons yet. Luckily, the way I've kind of scheduled things is I made my my workload at the start a lot more intense, so that I had the ability to push things back in later weeks. So there is definitely going to be stuff from this week that's pushed back. I'm going to be putting more weapons in. Realistically, a lot of the stuff is going to be a lot easier now. Like, making weapons is just going to be models, so I might just try and make like one weapon a week, just a model. Because realistically, the mechanics that are involved are going to be exactly the same as the two-handed axe. There's not really going to be much difference. There's just going to be different places to grab it. Like, if I have a big two-handed sword, it'll just be... to be honest, with a two-handed sword, I might even have fixed points. Although, I might allow you to half sword, which is when, if you're unaware, is when you basically hold on to halfway through halfway along the blade. So it's kind of used for, like, you can kind of smack enemies with the pommel of your weapon, which is, blunt damage. That's one more thing I need to do, which I have got in the code prepared, but it's not ready. Is I want to have separate damage types for slash damage and blunt damage. Because what I want is the blunt damage to have more of a ragdoll effect on the enemy, so kind of knock them around a bit maybe. And the slash damage will eventually, but maybe, I'll have to figure out the actual mechanics of this and whether I can, but be able to hack off limbs and stuff, because, who doesn't like hacking off limbs in VR? It's fantastic. So yeah, that's all I've really got through this week. But yeah, next week I'll be looking at... I'll be looking at adding some more weapons, as I said, because I haven't quite got as much as I wanted to do. I still have those bugs with the bow where when I aim up, it kind of spins around. I'm not 100% on how I'm going to sort that out, honestly, but yeah. One more thing to note is I'm not sure if anybody's aware, but in the clip that I showed of the axe in game, as opposed to the clip of it in Mixer or Blender, the axe in game does not look anywhere near as good as it does in Mixer or Blender. And now I'm not really sure on why that is. If anybody has any ideas, it would be appreciated. I'm going to endeavour to try and fix that, but so far, not sure. But yeah, so that's one problem that I also want to fix. But yeah, I'll probably just make like a model a week. But next week, I'm looking to focus on getting some currency in place. So when you kill an enemy, you get like points. Whether it's just points or whether it's gold, or I'm not certain. But I want to start getting some of the actual tower defense functionality in, like having a base that the enemies like damage when they get into it. And having a basic arrow tower, because right now I've got a placeholder tower, but I want a tower that actually can just attack. So I'll have some basic tower AI as well set up. I would like to get the player stats, kind of like strength and stuff in. Whether they do anything straight away, it doesn't really matter. I just want to kind of get that system set up. And I would like to kind of, if I can, get some of the player upgrades in as well, so you can actually upgrade your equipment. But there is quite a lot of stuff, and given that I'm having to push stuff back into next week, I may have to push that a bit further back. I did set this up for 8 weeks originally, but it might, I think, looking at progress so far, I think I might have underestimated the time. It might be more like 12 weeks, but that's not too bad. I was just hoping to get it done by Christmas, but it might take into January. But yeah, that's all for this week. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.